So this is incredibly unfair to Caitlin Clark, this entire thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it right now. We are going to be talking here about the whole post-game situation where you have, where 2 weeks ago, or even 10 days ago, however long it was, whenever the Seattle game was, it's like time simultaneously is flying because I'm about to turn 30. It's getting bad, and also time is slowing down because I can't even remember what freaking day stuff happened.
The door slammed shut. Stephanie White could not believe what she was hearing. The league had finally been caught red-handed in a plot to derail the biggest star they have ever seen. It was not just a mistake or a bad scheduling fluke, it was deliberate, calculated, and designed to force Caitlin Clark into a corner where she could not win. The WNBA was allegedly allowing a media environment meant to trigger a collapse. And now, the truth is leaking out of the front offices. This is not just about basketball anymore, this is a full-blown war on the most talented rookie in history. And the sabotage is deeper than anyone imagined.
While getting her to answer that non-basketball question, they were trying to throw her under the bus because it was a question that no matter what answer she gave, it would cause a shit show. And that reporter is again somebody who's despises Caitlin, is referred to her as a white teenage boy. And then you've got other now reporters from the other extreme that essentially asked Caitlin Clark the same question, and then when she decided she didn't want to answer it, and gave the most diplomatic, middle-of-the-road, uncontroversial answer.
The fury coming from Stephanie White stems from a realization that the league's silence is actually a form of complicity. For weeks, we have seen Caitlin Clark being hounded by people who claim to be journalists but act like political operatives. They are not there to ask about her jump shot or her court vision. They are there to set traps. White sees this as a betrayal of the sport itself. When a league allows its flagship player to be treated like a political punching bag instead of an athlete, you have to wonder if they actually want her to succeed, or if they are afraid of the power she now holds over the entire industry.
The same journalists that were trying to get into the Lynx game were then trying to get credential for the Fever game. They're getting refused credentials. Why are they getting refused credentials? Because the Indiana Fever know, just like why the Indiana Fever did not put Caitlin Clark out in Seattle, because they knew that journalist was going to ask a question, and they knew it was going to have nothing to do with basketball. They know that these quote-unquote media, I'm going to say quote-unquote media sources because they are. And these media sources don't want Caitlin Clark to answer a basketball question. It is as simple as that. And I'm going to give props to the Indiana Fever because
everything changed during that now infamous game in Seattle. We all saw it. A journalist decided it was their personal mission to force Caitlin into a non-basketball conversation. This was not an accident, it was a setup. The questions were framed in a way that, no matter what Caitlin said, it would cause a massive controversy. If she spoke up, she was a target. If she stayed silent, she was a villain. This is the definition of a hit job. And the fact that it happened in a professional setting, under the WNBA's watch, is what has people like Stephanie White absolutely livid right now.
Sources don't want Caitlin Clark to answer a basketball question. It is as simple as that. And I'm going to give props to the Indiana Fever because it's so funny the way the crowd that want Caitlin Clark to speak out and everything, when she does, it's never good enough, which is completely unfair to her. And then the crowd that push for every other player to just shut up and dribble. When a player is shutting up and dribbling, who they want to push a narrative, who they think is on their side and wants to push a narrative they want, that's a problem too. At the end of the day, I don't know what Caitlin Clark's stance on.
The source of the tension is these media figures who are essentially political activists disguised as sports reporters. They are not interested in the final score or the defensive rotations. They want to use Caitlin Clark to push a specific narrative. Some of these individuals have even gone as far as to refer to her supporters in derogatory terms, calling them names that have no place in sports. When the media starts attacking the fan base of a rookie player just for existing, you know the goal is not coverage. The goal is to isolate her and make the environment so toxic that she eventually breaks.
When it comes to Caitlin Clark, it doesn't matter what side of the extreme you are on. If you are one of these people that is essentially a political media and you disguise that yourself as sports media, but you're really a political media, which is fine. And you can do what you want. Your readers are there for a reason. They can read whatever they want to read. Like, they're there for a reason. You've got your readers, you've got your listeners. It is what it is. That is your job. Everyone is entitled to give their opinion on certain topics. But the thing is, when a player doesn't want to get involved in any of that.
But here is the twist that nobody saw coming. The Indiana Fever have finally had enough. In a move that sent shockwaves through the league, the Fever started refusing credentials to certain journalists. They saw what was happening in Seattle, and they decided to put a stop to it. They realized that these media outlets were not there to cover the Indiana Fever. They were there to ambush their star player. By cutting off their access, the Fever sent a loud message: if you are here to play political games, you are not welcome in our arena. It was a bold move that the league office likely hates.
In life, if a person wants to not be an activist, they don't have to be. And we've seen that from Caitlin Clark being put, almost they're trying to push her into being an activist. At the end of the day, everyone knows where Caitlin Clark's politics are. But why does anyone give a fuck? Why does anyone give a fuck? Like, these are situations on both extremes. When you've got Dave Portnoy sounding like a sane person, like Dave Portnoy quoting people basically being like, just let her play. She clearly doesn't want to answer these, just let her play basketball. We enjoy her playing basketball. When Dave Portnoy is sounding like a sensible person in arguments,
This refusal of credentials is the smoking gun. It proves that the team knows there is an active effort to sabotage Caitlin's focus. They saw the same people who tried to grill her in Seattle trying to get into the game against the Lynx, and they shut the door. The team is now acting as a shield because they know the WNBA will not do it. Stephanie White knows that when a team has to go to these lengths to protect a player from the media, the system is fundamentally broken. It is a level of protection we have never seen before because the level of aggression is unprecedented.
A sane person, like Dave Portnoy quoting people basically being like, just let her play. She clearly doesn't want to answer these, just let her play basketball. We enjoy her playing basketball. When Dave Portnoy is sounding like a sensible person in arguments, you know you're so far off the beaten track. Like, if Dave Portnoy, if what he is coming out with sounds reasonable, sounds like level-headed and reasonable, you are so far in one extreme that you're too far gone. At the end of the day, it is now
the situation with Sophie Cunningham adds another layer to this unbelievable drama. Sophie has been vocal about her opinions, and the media has tried to use those opinions to drive a wedge between her and Caitlin. They wanted Caitlin to come out and publicly condemn her peer, creating a locker room nightmare. But the truth is, players like Sophie do not want Caitlin to be their shield. They want her to be a basketball player. There are even reports of lip readers catching conversations where players thanked coaches for not dragging them into the public line of fire. It is all a game of manipulation.
She wouldn't be as outspoken as she is. She knows how what she says is going to go down with fans. You might be saying, oh, but what about players and stuff? I'm going to be very honest. The topic that Sophie Cunningham's talking about is one in which 80% of the country agree with Sophie Cunningham. 80% of America, I think 85-90% of the world agree with Sophie Cunningham's stance. It's one of those things where I think if you anonymous surveyed the players, it's going to be 70-80% agree with Sophie. I don't think they're going at Sophie Cunningham for this thing.
We have to talk about the sheer hypocrisy of the media right now. On one hand, you have people who spent years telling athletes to use their platforms for activism. But now that Caitlin Clark wants to focus on her game, those same people are attacking her for not being an activist. They want her to shut up and dribble when it suits them. But they demand she speak up when it fits their agenda. It is a disgusting double standard that has left Caitlin in a very awkward position. She just wants to play the sport she loves, but she is being forced into a role she never asked for. Even Dave Portnoy is starting to sound like the most reasonable person in the room, which tells you exactly how far off the tracks this has gone. When people who are usually known for being controversial are the ones calling for calm and common sense, you know the mainstream media has lost its mind. Portnoy's take was simple: let her play. We enjoy watching her play basketball. So why are we trying to ruin that experience with constant political litigation? When the voices of reason are coming from outside the traditional sports media bubble, it exposes the rot within the WNBA press corps. The internal metrics are even more shocking. It is estimated that if you anonymously surveyed the players in the league, a massive majority, perhaps 80%, would actually agree with the sentiment of staying out of the political fray. They see what is happening to Caitlin and they are terrified. They see that if the media can do this to the biggest star in the world, they can do it to anyone. There is a silent majority of players who just want the circus to leave town so they can focus on the growth of the game, but the loud minority in the media refuses to let that happen. Stephanie White's frustration is also fueled by how this affects the actual product on the court. Caitlin Clark is one of the most exciting players to watch in the history of the sport. Her vision, her range, and her passing are generational. But instead of talking about her double-doubles or her impact on the Fever's win column, we are stuck talking about credentialed activists and trap questions. This is the true sabotage. It is the theft of the joy of basketball. The league is allowing the narrative to be hijacked by people who do not even like the sport. The WNBA office has reportedly admitted that the situation has become unmanageable, but their lack of action speaks louder than any statement. They are enjoying the ratings and the money that Caitlin brings in, but they are not willing to provide the security or the media boundaries necessary to protect her. It is a parasitic relationship. They are feeding off her success while letting the wolves circle her at every press conference. This is why the Indiana Fever taking matters into their own hands is such a pivotal moment in this season. They are doing the job the league won't. Let's be clear about what these journalists are doing. They are asking questions that have no right answer. If Caitlin Clark answers one way, she alienates a massive portion of her fan base. If she answers the other way, she is labeled a traitor to the league's culture. It is a psychological war of attrition. They want to wear her down until she says something they can use to cancel her. Stephanie White sees this for exactly what it is, an attempt to gatekeep the league and remind the rookie that she does not own the spotlight unless she plays by their political rules. The most unhinged part of this is the writing coming out about players like Sophie Cunningham. The media is trying to frame any player who supports Caitlin or has a different worldview as a villain. They are holding up signs and writing hit pieces. But players like Sophie are tough. They know that 80% of the country is actually on their side, even if the media makes it feel like they are alone. This divide between the real world and the media world has never been wider. And Caitlin Clark is currently standing right in the middle of that canyon. Why does everyone care so much about her politics, anyway? She is a 22-year-old basketball player. She is not a legislator. She is not a diplomat. She does not have the power to change the laws of the country, no matter what some reporter in Seattle thinks. To put that kind of pressure on a rookie is not just unfair, it is borderline abusive. The league should be shielding her from these expectations, but instead they are opening the doors and inviting the chaos in. It is no wonder Stephanie White is reaching her breaking point with this administration. The impact on Caitlin's mental game has to be immense. Imagine trying to prepare for a game against the best athletes in the world while knowing that the second the buzzer sounds, you will be ambushed by people trying to ruin your reputation. It takes a special kind of mental toughness to survive that. And so far, Caitlin has handled it with more grace than anyone could expect. But she shouldn't have to. She should be able to focus on her film study and her teammates. The sabotage is working because it forces her to spend energy on things that have nothing to do with winning games. The Indiana Fever's decision to block credentials was the first real blow struck back against this system. It showed that the team is willing to lose coverage in exchange for the sanity of their players. This is a lesson the rest of the league needs to learn. Not all media is good media. If a source is coming to your arena with the intent to harm your player's brand, you have every right to tell them to stay home. The Fever are setting a new standard for player protection, and it is about time someone stood up to the bullies in the press room. We are seeing a clear split in the media landscape. You have the sports media that actually cares about the game, and then you have the political media that is using the WNBA as a new battleground. The problem is that the political side is louder and more aggressive. They don't care if the league succeeds or fails. They only care about their own social currency. This is why the sabotage feels so personal. It is an attempt to transform a basketball league into a social experiment, and Caitlin Clark is the unwilling test subject for their theories. What is even more interesting is how the fans are reacting. The arenas are packed, the jerseys are sold out, and the engagement is at an all-time high. The fans want to see Caitlin play. They don't care about the trap questions or the media narratives. This proves that the sabotage is not coming from the public. It is coming from a small group of people with microphones. Stephanie White knows that if the league doesn't listen to the fans soon, they are going to alienate the very people who are currently saving their business model from irrelevance. There is a decent chunk of goodness in this league, but it is being overshadowed by this manufactured drama. There are amazing veterans and incredible storylines that are being ignored because the media is too busy trying to bait a rookie into a scandal. The sabotage isn't just hurting Caitlin. It is hurting every other player who deserves to have their skills highlighted. When you focus all your energy on a political hit job, you miss the beauty of the game. That is the tragedy of this entire season, and it is why the frustration is boiling over. Caitlin Clark is not Sophie Cunningham, and she is not any of the other players she is being compared to. She is her own person, and she is a hell of a basketball player. Watching her play is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be an escape. But the league and the media have turned it into a high-stakes trial. Every move she makes is analyzed for its political meaning. Every silence is treated like a confession. It is an exhausting way to live, and it is a miracle she is still performing at such a high level despite the weight on her shoulders. The truth is finally coming out because people are starting to speak up. Whether it is the Fever blocking credentials or coaches expressing their private anger, the walls are closing in on the people who tried to sabotage this season. You can only push a fake narrative for so long before the reality of the situation takes over. The reality is that Caitlin Clark is a basketball phenomenon who just wants to win games. Anything else is just noise created by people who are afraid of her impact on the status quo. As we move forward, the WNBA has a choice to make. They can continue to allow this sabotage to happen, or they can finally step in and protect their players from the vultures. Stephanie White's fury is a wake-up call for everyone involved. The fans have made their choice, and the Fever have made theirs. Now it is time for the league to decide if they are a sports organization or a political circus. The future of the game depends on them getting this right because the world is watching, and the truth cannot be hidden anymore.